Hello, I'm Myra Jacobs, Executive Director and founder of the National Bone Marrow Transplant Link. We provide information and support regarding bone marrow stem cell transplants. Our focus is to assist transplant patients and their families through education and support. The National Bone Marrow Transplant Link is pleased to present the following film, The New Normal. The families you will meet have already taken the journey you're about to begin. They have successfully completed the transplant process and are living new normal lives. Although no film can fully prepare you for what lies ahead, we hope the new normal will help reduce your fears by providing greater understanding and encouragement.
I had my transplant October 27th, 1998.
I had my stem cell transplant on September 2nd, 1998.
I had my bone marrow transplant on January 31st, 1996.
I had my transplant on September 7th, 1995.
I had my transplant on February 7th, 1992.
I had my transplant on November 18th, 1991. I was wearing shorts at the time, Bermuda shorts, and I looked down at my leg, and there was a huge black and blue mark on my leg. And that just sent a signal to me. I couldn't account for how that had gotten there.
I had absolutely no symptoms of being sick or having any disease or any medical problem. I had had my annual physical, which is a requirement at General Motors for all of our executives. And he picked up a slightly lowered white count when he did the blood workup.
What happened was I started to experience some double vision, and I decided to have my eyes checked, and then it just kind of went from there that she didn't really want to make the diagnosis without having me see an oncologist, so then we went to the oncologist and he did the bone marrow aspiration.
When you're told you have a diagnosis of leukemia, you don't really hear any subsequent words about cure rates or treatment or anything. You just immediately go from here to not being here.
I did what any tough-minded, strong-willed executive might do. I fainted. I fell dead to the floor.
I did not know what an oncologist was. I had never been associated with cancer. I was devastated. I got home, and Mike was there with Amber. He knew. When I opened the car door, he said, opened the door, he says, "Well, how'd it go?" I mean, he could tell I'd been crying, and I dropped in the yard in his arms.
I think people going through this kind of catastrophic situation, perhaps they tend to think, as I did, that my situation is unique. I'm not so sure that that's true. I think there are more things in common than not in common. And so I think there's much to be gained from knowing what to expect.
When you receive that kind of diagnosis, your world is turned upside down just instantly. The first emotional reaction is, at least for me, was overwhelming fear.
And I just remember feeling as though the top of my head was going to explode. I could actually feel heat at the top of my head, like the top would just blow away.
It's kind of funny. I was stretching to go for a run. That'll teach me. And I felt this big lump. I finally went and got it checked. I mean, you go from one life of no doctors, no clinics, no nothing, and then you're thrown into this really almost physically parallel world of just doctors and clinics and appointments, and that's where I went from one 30-second phone call to another.
I really felt that I would survive that procedure. However, I also knew that I could reduce my anxiety by making preparations for various scenarios that might occur.
But then I really quickly moved into a survival mode. I found out, that the bone marrow transplant did exist, so I immediately kind of took the bull by the horns as much as I could, as much as just a human being could, and said, I'm not going to let this thing get past me.
My military background was extremely helpful, as it turned out, in approaching the challenge that I faced. It's akin to a war when you are diagnosed with this kind of a disease. You've got to bring to bear all of the resources possible. You've got to understand all the risks.
My daughter was my inspiration. She was the reason that I did my transplant, because I didn't want her to grow up without a mommy, and only being 3, she would have never remembered me. She just gave me the will to keep fighting no matter what happened.
The things I worried about, the things that I feared more about were what if the worst were to happen? What then would happen to my family?
We never had a doubt as to what our course of treatment would be. The children were all small then, and we said, definitely, we're going with the bone marrow transplant.